This week I grinded out one hero, and that hero is Hela. Is Hela really the easiest DPS in the game? Does the character require skill? I've played some Hela in the past, but I never really felt confident in my Hela, so I never really played her like that, aka never had a chance to play her in ranked lobbies well. But this week I tackled the challenge. What I did is I hopped on my alt and I started truly learning the hero, and one thing that I learned, my aim is bad. But I'm going to figure out why and how to actually improve your aim. So, well, not just your aim, my aim too. So if you play Hela, or if you're new to Hela, some of these things might help you out. So I usually play on an alt when I want to learn new characters and improve. And one of the first things that I realized as Hela, after I've been aim training for a while, is when you hit your shots hurt. This character does a lot of damage, but at the same time, when you whiff all the shots, it's like, man. But it does feel like Hela is the hardest hero to actually aim with. Like, her hitbox on her projectile is probably the smallest outside of Adam. So then another thing came to mind. Why am I missing so many shots if I practice in the aim trainer? Hello everyone, my name is Slam, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to become a top 500 DPS in Marvel Rivals, as well as try to be known for my aim. So if you guys want to follow along with that journey, feel free to drop a like and a sub. Also, if you gain any value out of this video, all I ask is also that you drop a like and a sub. Hela is all clicking and tracking. I usually alternate between the two. I can't really differentiate when I will click and when I will track. I kind of just do everything based off of feel. So I know that's one thing that Hela players talk about. Is it better to click? Is it better to track? But I really go based off of the feel. I'll usually track for easier targets. So like Thing, Captain America, bigger hitboxes. But I'll usually click when the target is smaller and further away to avoid whiffing as many shots as possible. So how exactly do we click? The way that I go about clicking or aiming at a target, first identify the target and then you flick to the target. And under flick is preferred, but over flicking is still a flick. And after you flick, you micro adjust onto your target. The faster that this happens, the more it looks like one motion, but it's two motions. But this is pretty much aim trainer technique. All of my in-game technique, aim technique, transfers from the aim trainer. What is a micro adjustment? Micro adjusting, micro adjust, or micro is that ending movement after the flick. You flick and then you adjust onto the target. For me, when I aim, I look at my target. So you could say that I'm focused on the target, and then I'll try to flick to that target and try to see my crosshair on the target. The motion after I flick to when I see my crosshair on the target is the micro adjustment. And then once I confirm that my crosshair is on the target, I'll click. Now in game, this is more subconscious. I don't really focus on seeing the crosshair on the target. Sometimes I will see like, okay, is my crosshair on the target? But most of the time aiming is kind of like subconscious. To me, it feels, at least right now. Who knows? Maybe later on things will change. Who knows? Now, tracking. How do we track with this hero? Tracking technique is seeing a target and reacting to its movement as you track it. A few pieces of tech for tracking. Do not overpredict. This is something I need to work on a lot so my tracking becomes more smooth. Don't overpredict. Assume your target will move in the same direction and then react to the movement when it changes direction. Now, when you react, you don't just hard flick. You want to react smoothly. You want to avoid the hard flick, avoid the over flick, and you want to try to almost micro adjust back onto the target smoothly. Watch the target, not the crosshair. Prioritize keeping the crosshair on the target, but we are also reading the target. Reading a target gets easier over time, but it's really hard when first trying to track. So now that I went over clicking and tracking, and this is the proper aim technique, why do we miss? So I think one of the biggest reasons for me, before more so than now, was pressure and state. Obviously in a ranked match, you experience pressure, right? You want to win, you want to gain your points, you want to hit your shots, you want to get the pick. You don't want your team to say that you're not doing anything. You don't want them to die and spectate you and be like, oh, like Hela is just missing every shot. You know, there's all these stakes and pressures that come along with the match that you might think of. And these are something that I think of when I play. But the worst thing to focus on in match is your aim, like trying to aim better in match. Now, personally, I feel it's different than trying to critique your technique. Like, let's say you realize you're like not really tracking well and you can track better. I think that's different, but trying to like aim like your life depends on it, I think that's the worst type of thing that you can do in game. Like hyper fixating on your aim, because then you're not able to do the other things that you need to do really reacting to your environment, or tracking ults, or tracking other players. Hyperfixating on your aim takes away from other things that you have to focus on in match. For me, the biggest thing that I realized in tracking in-game versus the aim trainer is the size of the target. Now this is something recent for me, something that I really got to work on more, pretty much starting now. When I first started aiming in the aim trainer and working on mouse control, naturally we start with larger targets. So I started with larger targets, and this is because you basically have to get used to what you're doing in the aim trainer. You learn about the technique, you learn how to click, you learn how to flick, you learn how to track. So this is why you start with larger targets. And then as you become more experienced, the targets become smaller and the targets become faster. I feel like one of the biggest reasons I missed in game when I'm trying to get a pick in the backline, basically snipe someone out the backline, is that I'm not comfortable with aiming at those smaller targets and actually hitting the target. I have less experience doing that. I spent so much time focusing on larger targets, trying to shoot larger targets, that I'm realizing smaller targets are now becoming an issue. So now that I realized what one of my biggest issues are, how do I aim better? How do I get the snipe in the backline as Hela? How do I actually improve my aim and pick off the supports? Well, good thing I used the aim trainer. After realizing this issue that I had, the lack of accuracy along with the lack of confidence in actually targeting and shooting smaller targets, and when I tried to replicate these smaller targets in aim lab, for me, the way that I found to train this is by adjusting the FOV, something I've never done before. I've always played on default FOV, but now that I realized, okay, I have a specific size target and speed of the target I have to work on, I'm now starting to adjust my FOV so I can practice shooting smaller targets, really small targets, and I'll have to practice tracking really small targets. So now this is when the training begins. Unfortunately, I can't say yes, this training works, no, this training doesn't work, because I don't really have results. But in the coming weeks, I'll definitely make an update to this and show like the actual progress, along with how confident I'm feeling in aiming, because I feel like using the aim trainer, I've become a lot more confident in aiming, and instead of avoiding the hit scan characters, I kind of gravitate more towards the hit scan characters. But yeah, if you guys learned something from this video or gained any sort of value, all I ask is that you drop a like and a sub, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.